Do you know what it's like to see a thing that you just can't unsee? In April of 2011, I saw something like that. Something that shook me in a way that I've spent years struggling to put into words. Something that felt so significant that it haunts me to this day. It was like overhearing a secret. No, not a secret exactly, but rather a private joke. A very private joke. Tonight, I'm going to tell you that joke, but I'm going to tell it to you the way I first heard it. Punchline first, and then we'll see if we can sort out the setup. Travel back to 2011 with me, to a time when Donald Trump was the host of Celebrity Apprentice and was making headlines by questioning the legitimacy of Obama as president.
You are not allowed to be a president if you're not born in this country. He may not have been born in this country, but there's something on that person, maybe religion, maybe it says he's a Muslim, I don't know. Maybe he doesn't want that, or he may not have one. But I will tell you this, if he wasn't born in this country, it's one of the great scams of all time.
Absolutely.
Now, Trump, this champion of morality and the rule of law, he didn't try to have Obama impeached for bombing Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Somalia, Yemen, Libya, and Syria. No, and this fair-haired defender of the Constitution wasn't concerned with Obama's policies of indefinite detention or the suspension of habeas corpus either.
Announcing a radical new claim of presidential power that is not afforded by the Constitution and that has never been attempted in American history, even by George W. Bush and Dick Cheney. We will incarcerate people preventively. Preventive incarceration. Indefinite detention without trial. That's what this is. That's what President Obama proposed today, if you strip away the euphemisms. One civil liberties advocate told the New York Times today, quote, "We've known this was on the horizon for many years, but we were able to hold it off with George Bush. The idea that we might find ourselves fighting with the Obama administration over these powers is really stunning."
However, it was Donald Trump's burden to regretfully inform the country, well, ladies and gentlemen, this man doesn't look like what we expect our presidents to look like, and I'm sorry, I don't know how to tell you this, but...
Hey, the sheriff is near. What are you saying? The sheriff is near. No, God blame it, James Lemon. The sheriff is near.
Drone warfare, corporate welfare, overseeing massive surveillance of the American people. All of the issues that could have been raised. But no, the conspiracy theory was just some xenophobic bullshit about Obama being born in Kenya and therefore not being eligible to hold office.
But there's something on that person, maybe religion, maybe it says he's a Muslim, I don't know.
So eventually Obama has to respond, and in April of 2011, he releases his birth certificate. Okay, so end of conspiracy theory and end of story, right? Well, no, because just 3 days after releasing his birth certificate, Obama happens to be speaking at an event that Donald Trump is also attending. It's the press correspondence dinner, and Obama takes the stage to say, "Fuck you, I'm going to mock you in front of the whole world," and he makes this joke. I mean, they had a whole video clip set up, and, writers and video editors. It's this very staged joke. It's produced. But, well, just watch.
It is wonderful to be here at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. What a week. As some of you heard, the state of Hawaii released my official long-form birth certificate. Hopefully, this puts all doubts to rest. But just in case there are any lingering questions, tonight, I'm prepared to go a step further. Tonight, for the first time, I am releasing my official birth video. Now, let's take a look.
You get it? It's funny because racism, I guess. I don't know. You see, it's not a real great joke. It's fine. It is Saturday Night Live level humor. But it hardly sounds like something that should fascinate me for a decade. I get that. So let me give you a bit more context. The night continues with Obama making fun of Donald Trump and how ridiculous it would be if Trump actually became president.
Donald Trump is here tonight. And obviously, we all know about your credentials and breadth of experience. For example, no, seriously, just recently in an episode of Celebrity Apprentice, and so ultimately you didn't blame Lil Jon or Meatloaf. You fired Gary Busey. And these are the kind of decisions that would keep me up at night. Well handled, sir. Well handled. Say what you will about Mr. Trump. He certainly would bring some change to the White House. Let's see what we've got up there.
It's pretty eerie to see that now, knowing that Trump actually became president 5 years later. But did you know that it has been widely speculated that Trump's whole quest to become president began in earnest on that night as some psychotic revenge fantasy?
I was 2 tables away from Trump. The conventional way in Washington of absorbing a joke at the White House Correspondents' Dinner is to keep your chin up and at least pretend to have a sense of humor about it, even if you go cry into your pillow that night. Trump was steaming. His face was all locked in. He was not having a good time.
I think that is the night that he resolves to run for president. I think that he is kind of motivated by it. Maybe I'll just run. Maybe I'll show them all.
Donald Trump's fantasy is to be the guy who takes the key to the Oval Office from Barack Obama's hand in 2017. And it's personal. This is a burning personal need that he has to redeem himself from being humiliated by the first black president.
And he do look pissed the whole fucking time. So, yeah, this night, this shitty joke may be responsible for all of us having to live through the Back to the Future 2 timeline. That's pretty big. But it's just the beginning. Okay, so Obama's making fun of Trump, says he's the Lion King. Trump cries, everyone laughs, everyone goes home. This is a Saturday night, mind you. Well, what happens the next day? Obama gets back in front of the cameras and says, hey, last night I demolished Trump, and today I killed Osama bin Laden.
President Obama speaking from the East Room of the White House, telling the nation and the world President Obama is in fact dead. It was a U.S.-led strategic, Osama bin Laden is dead.
Obama's dead, I don't care. What did I say? how Obama was killed and what led to the American forces finding out where he was.
Near the attack where Obama was killed.
The price of crude oil is now down by $2 a barrel. The thinking is now with Obama dead, terrorism won't be so prevalent in the Arab world. And
through the media that a missile attack had killed Obama, Osama bin Laden rather.
Got the news later that Obama had been killed.
And everybody is waiting to hear him speak. But this is what we do know at this point. This has been sort of labeled as a situation that deals with national security. What they're calling it is
a surprising number of Fox News reporters made the mistake of saying Obama died instead of Osama. So that's weird. But by highlighting the incredible similarity of their names, we get our first clue that this is just getting weirder. Now, when I saw the news, I happened to know a little Japanese, and it occurred to me that Osama means king. A few days later, I come to find out that in Arabic, Osama means lion. At this moment, I realize there is a major correlation between Obama showing a video saying he is the Lion King, and then the next day turning around to say he has killed the Lion King. This story is mired in the context of his birth certificate. So I start to think about the symbolism of death and rebirth. Oh right, this is the same week as Easter, a holiday where the King of Kings dies and is reborn. All this starts to feel significant, very much so. The royal wedding of Will and Kate is happening this same weekend. A huge spectacle dedicated to royal bloodlines and the once and future king. Want me to keep going? Because this is where it starts going overboard for me. Same time frame, same weekend, hundreds of thousands of Catholics descend on the Vatican for the beatification of Pope John Paul II. They dig the dead Pope's body up out of the ground, grant him the title of a saint, keep a vial of his holy blood as a souvenir, and seal his body under an altar. That's happening the same fucking weekend. Does this not sound like some shit out of Rosemary's Baby? Each of the 3 major cities, representing the financial, military, and religious control of the planet, have, at the same time, major events with millions of people out in the streets, seemingly partaking in some larger ritual, unbeknownst to most of the celebrants.
What a week.
And now let's be clear. This isn't an Illuminati video. I'm not coming at this material from that angle at all. But I would be a liar if I didn't mention that. It's the founding of the Illuminati, like the actual organization, Bavarian Illuminati. That's their birthday. But May 1st is also significant in Arthurian mythology as the birthday of the man who was prophesied to kill the king. So again, it's this layer upon layer of historical meaning and direct symbolic allusions.
In Arabic, Osama means lion. In Japanese, it means king. So here you have Barack Obama presenting himself as the Lion King, saying, I've killed the Lion King, I am the Lion King. The king is dead, long live the king. Now, if this is high occult politics, or this is crazy synchronicity, I don't want to take it.
Right.
It's definitely something, for sure. For sure.
Right after, directly after Obama finishes, he's been on this rant for a few minutes talking about Trump. He ends with this joke about the Trump White House resort and casino. And then, what's the very next thing?
So, yes, this has been quite a year in politics, but also in the movies. Many people, for instance, were inspired by The King's Speech. Wonderful film. Well, Some of you may not know this, but there's now a sequel in the works that touches close to home. So can we show the trailer, please?
The President's Speech.
Their very own website proclaims that this whole night is meant to equate Obama's speech with the King's speech. I mean, it is so specific, so hammered home again and again. So I ask you, what do you do with that information? How do you begin to process that or parse through the heavy implications? For myself, it pushed my research in a totally new direction, and I produced a bunch of false starts. I wrote 200 pages of a book trying to detail all this. I made a video, well, a few videos really, but one in particular trying to pick up where the book left off. I'm going to be real, there's way more than I could ever fit into what you're watching now, but if this subject fascinates you, even a fraction of the way it does me, you can check my math, as it were, by going to thesyncbook.com/kings. All that content is free and incomplete and curated into one spot for you if you want it. Okay, now, first things first, the essential writing on the subject is called The Golden Bough, which is widely considered to be one of the most important early texts in the fields of psychology and anthropology.
The Golden Bough is a study of comparative mythology and religion, written by the Scottish anthropologist Sir James George Frazer. His specific focus is the death and ritual murder of kings, as well as the spiritual and esoteric hope for the king's rebirth. Released in 1890, it remains a major influence to this day, spotted here in the film Apocalypse Now. It's a massive collection and presents some challenging reading, to say the least. First published as 2 volumes, it soon swelled to a whopping 12. With that understanding, it's almost comical to realize that filmmaker Stanley Kubrick once sent an unabridged copy of The Golden Bough to the head of production at Warner Brothers, bugging him every couple of weeks for a year about reading it. Yet, when the frustrated executive finally said, "Stanley, I've got a studio to run. I don't have time to read mythology," Kubrick replied, "It isn't mythology. It's your life."
After studying The Golden Bough, it would sure seem that the events of that particular weekend in 2011 are a fairly direct mirroring of the Hebsed Festival, also known as the Festival of the Tail, an ancient Egyptian ceremony celebrating the continuance of a pharaoh's reign, in lieu of the ritual murder of the pharaoh. This from Book 3 of The Golden Bough. Kings, princes, or priests who played the part of a god for a time, and then either died a violent death in the divine character, or had to redeem their life in one way or another, whether by performing a make-believe sacrifice at some expense of pain and danger to themselves, or by delegating the duty to a substitute. To put that in simpler terms, this is basically talking about the idea of the scapegoat. You know, hey, let's put all our sins and negativity on this sacrificial animal, push it off a cliff or into a fire, we'll hope that appeases the gods, and call it a day. We still use the expression, and the ritual is perhaps just as contemporary. Let's read some more. After the death of the deputy, the real king renewed his life and reign. Henceforward, this became the greatest of the royal festivals. Pharaoh is conducted to the tomb, and from it he returns rejuvenated and reborn, like Osiris emerging from the dead. How was this fiction carried out? How was this miracle performed? By the sacrifice of human or animal victims. On behalf of the king, a priest lay down in the skin of an animal victim. he assumed the posture characteristic of an embryo in its mother's womb. When he came forth from the skin, he was deemed to be reborn, and Pharaoh, for whom this rite was celebrated, was himself reborn. Or, to adopt the Egyptian expression, he renewed his births. And in testimony of the due performance of the rites, the king girt his loins with the tail, a compendious representative of the skin of the sacrificed beast, whence the name of the Festival of the Tail. After reading that and thinking of little cartoon Obama putting on the ritual tail and presenting himself in the guise of an animal for the world to see, it's insanity. And this doesn't even scratch the surface. We talked in our previous episode about the ways in which Obama was constantly compared to these solar gods or sun kings. Well, you take the time to study alchemy, you'll see that the lion is intimately related to the sun itself, and to all that Sun King symbolism. Hell, look at Petrus Bonus's The New Pearl of Great Price, and it's like a step-by-step formula depicting the events of all of that weekend in 2011. From the death of the king that we saw with Osama bin Laden, the alchemical marriage of Will and Kate, the elevation of the Pope to sainthood, to the rebirth of the Solar King Obama. The question that remained for me, and still remains for me, is what does that mean? It piles up so that it looks so intentional. When it is that specific, it's hard for me to imagine no one intended it. But did they? Is this a planned ritual? A bunch of frightened billionaires playing dress-up for old gods, hoping they can cling to power and fortune before the world crumbles around them? Or is this the very nature of synchronicity? Are these stories and archetypes the very building blocks of our reality? If we understand physical space to be made up of a set of repeating and interlocking elements, perhaps time too is made up of a set of repeating and interlocking elements. Whatever the answer to those questions, whether we explain it with synchronicity or magic or ritual, we are left with a bigger question. What do I do with that information? And how does it change my perspective on the world around me? Part of my compulsion to share this with you is to sort of outsource that question. It has driven me crazy long enough. You guys chew on it for a while. One thing I can tell you is that now I'm here writing in 2020, and all this imagery, all this specific joke is back, has been for at least a year. We'll start with the fact that the trailer for the CGI remake of Disney's Lion King came out the same week that the Mueller report was released. While the Mueller report wasn't the key to Trump's impeachment, it is intimately tied to the attempt to oust him, and as for the Lion King, well, it's literally the same fucking movie from the first part. It was at this point that I started paying attention again. Less than a month later, Meghan and Harry, playing the roles of sibling redo in the royal wedding aspect of that weekend, have a child. That child is born almost to the day on the anniversary of that weekend. The child is named Archie, apparently named after a cat. Alright, July 2019, the CGI Lion King comes out in theaters. The day before, the trailer for Cats is released. Now, this pairing makes sense as a marketing decision, advertising Cats while hoping to ride on the wave of Lion King's marketing push. But no, Cats is actually cool as shit in its own way, and it is based on the writing of T.S. Eliot. Eliot is important because almost exactly 100 years ago, he was writing about the exact thing we're talking about right here. In The Wasteland, widely regarded as one of the most important poems of the 20th century, he's talking about the death of Abraham Lincoln, the death of the president, as related to the death of the king, death and rebirth rituals, as well as tying this subject together with an interconnected web of linguistic space-time.
Musing upon the king, my brother's wreck, and on the king, my father's death before him.
Meanwhile, Ezra Pound, who edited The Wasteland, was beginning to lose himself in obsession with the conspiratorial side of all this. Spoiler alert, in an insane asylum comes a Nazi, kind of. It's fucking weird, it's crazy. I can't go too deep here, but if you want to dig deeper into that subject, I'd recommend the writing of Zenor over at Group Name for Grape Juice. But for now, I hope you understand that seeing T.S. Eliot's Cats film paired with the most literal signifier of this subject is significant. And with that little bit of context, I can point out one story we skipped. Paul Manafort, the Trump confidant whose prosecution can be seen as a sort of deputy king being sacrificed, and as an early iteration of the impeachment, Manafort was sentenced to prison by Judge T.S. Ellis. Because that's nothing like... that was 1 month before the Lion King trailer. Oh, and here's the New York Times calling him Caesar. You know, the murdered king. Yeah, it keeps going. 1 month later, Trump declares himself King of Israel, the second coming of God. And it was just a month after that when Pelosi initiated the impeachment inquiry against Donald Trump. Can I tell you how I first heard about the impeachment inquiry? Alright, it's September 24th. I'm at work sometime in the afternoon, and I'm setting up the bar, and I walk past a TV that was airing some news report, some seemingly human interest story about dogs. Turns out the dogs died. It is very sad. But the only sentence I heard as I walked past, they made the point of saying one of the dogs was named Simba after the Lion King.
Named after a lion, Simba the dog.
So, I'm seeing on the television that Simba the Lion King has died. Just then, a vibration in my pocket. Pull out my phone to see the text, Trump's being impeached. Wow, that was an insanely powerful personal synchronicity I wanted to share with you guys. Oh, if you're curious, the one dog was named Simba, the other dog's name was Jasper. That didn't mean anything to me, so I thought I'd look up its etymology. Traces back to Casper or Gasper, the name of one of the three kings. Fact, right? Yeah. Oh, also in September, 4 days after the impeachment inquiry, well, this happened.
This video that went viral, a woman climbing into the lion's den at the Bronx Zoo and taunting that big cat.
What made you want to jump into a lion's enclosure at the Bronx Zoo?
I would say it's a lot more spiritual. So I am
proud. Are you worried that you could have been injured by the lion?
Oh, no. I am the lion now. Can't you tell? Have you ever heard of reincarnation? Do your history, young man. You are very handsome. I love your eyes. I love your smile. Do your history. It's called reincarnation. I am the lion now. I am the lion now. Can't you tell?
And it was just a month after that, Trump declares he has killed al-Baghdadi, the ISIS leader that they really tried to play up like as if he had killed bin Laden. Like as if those were equitable political murders. There was very much an air of those two acts being symbolically associated, I believe even on a mainstream understanding of Trump's strategy, let alone the other comparisons we could make.
Do you remember you put up a link saying how many times bin Laden had been reported killed?
9 times.
9 times. Who has 9 lives?
A cat.
Cats was released in theaters on December 20th. Do you know what happened 2 days before that? Donald Trump was impeached by the U.S. House of Representatives on December 18th. Again, Cats isn't just based on the writings of T.S. Eliot, it is people faces on cats like this fucking thing. At the new year, literally on December 31st into January 1st, 3 lions are killed by federal agents near Tucson, Arizona. That's some potent symbolism right there. Multiple British royals start stepping down. Trump is being impeached. By the end of the month, everyone is talking about the coronavirus. Corona meaning crown. Crown, 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 right? And just then, Republicans say, hey, we know what Trump did was wrong, but we're not going to hold him accountable because we don't really mean the things we say about rule of law. And they acquit him. And Trump, he takes to Twitter and says it about as explicitly as possible. Quote, when you strike at the king, you must kill him. So, the question is no longer, am I, as some weird guy making videos on the internet, am I reading too much into this by equating impeachment with the killing of the king motif? I no longer doubt my sanity on that. Trump himself took to Twitter and announced to the world that he equates impeachment with the killing of the king motif. I guess Trump and I agree on something after all. Now look, I could keep going. I have a slew of data that I'm not even going to try and cram into this video. The levels of connection here are just absurd. If you're interested in more of this info, I'm going to try and keep updating the digital timeline I've started over at thesyncbook.com/kings. So please check that out. But, you know, it's so funny, I don't know how to end this video because every day something new happens that speaks directly to the pattern I've been tracing. And if there is literally no end to synchronistic rabbit holes, then I probably shouldn't attempt to map infinity. But I just realized that subject, the futility of mapping infinity, is very much at the heart of our next episode. For that video, I want to apply the hindsight 2020 lens to Terence McKenna's time wave model and revisit that whole 2012 end of the world fiasco. And I hope you'll join me.